Hi, Boyd. Hi, Ron.
Mute. How are you?
I'm well. Are you ready for the exciting world of cloning?
Absolutely.
There's about a dozen people in the meeting tonight, so, well, that's who signed up anyway.
Doing a bunch with the new master. Local adjustments. It's pretty cool.
I can't quite hear you. Is that Ron?
Yeah. So I said I've been working a lot with the new Lightroom masking local adjustments,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
and it is really cool.
Yeah, they've done a lot of great things with that. And they just had an update today, as a matter of fact, that made a few tweaks to make those little better. So
Great.
download the latest version if you haven't. So
Oh,
Hi.
hi there. I like your art collection in the background there.
Thanks, Eric. They haven't been on the wall for a long time.
That's a nice way of saying you've got some clutter going on over there.
I have so much clutter in this house, I can't tell you.
Yeah. Are you
Mhm.
downstairs?
Yeah.
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 Oh, no one sees it then, see?
Well, I see it. I just had the house appraised as of Bill's death,
Yeah.
and the appraiser came through and took photos of all the rooms, horrible photos.
Oh.
But they were in the appraisal, and all I saw was clutter. All I saw was clutter. And upstairs, I keep pretty clean,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it still looked cluttered. It was like, that's it.
Yeah. Well, it's a great time for an appraised value because
No,
they're
it's his time of his death, but that was almost 3 years ago.
oh, they appraised it then, or that's, oh, I see. It's
Yeah.
based on then. Okay.
Yeah, you have to do it at the time of death. And then,
Okay.
no, it would be nice if it was now.
Yeah, I was going to say the number is about 50% more right now. It's crazy.
Probably. It's crazy.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to begin, and
Okay.
other people may drop in. There's supposed to be 12, so we'll see what happens.
Well, I'm so pleased you're doing this for us. It's really
Good.
needed in my heart anyway.
All right. Well, yell if you want me to slow down or do something different.
Okay.
So can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. The key here is that with the cloning tool, and I'm going to describe it in great detail, is that can you see to the left here where the actual tool is?
Yeah.
And that's what it looks like if you're not familiar with it, but we'll start with that basic. Now, what happens is when you click on that tool, it opens up top here, all these different things, most of which you can ignore. You'll be happy to know.
Yeah.
The 60 is for size, hardness, and I'm going to go through that in a moment here. And you can ignore this little brush. You can ignore the little stamp tool. Keep it on normal for everything we're going to talk about today. Opacity, I'll get into that, and flow, I'll get into that briefly. Although flow is not really used very often for much of anything, but just to keep that in mind. And the rest of it, you can make sure that aligned is checked. And that's the only thing you need to pay attention to, that's checked. Otherwise, everything else will be pretty straightforward. Okay, so I'm going to start by saying if you look over my layers panel, I've got two layers. I've got this red rectangle and I've
Yes.
got these blue lines. And all I'm going to do just to start off is I want to show you how the tool works. So this is the clone, excuse me, this is the clone tool. And I'll use 60 for right now. And what I'm going to do is I am going to use this red square as my source.
Okay.
So I'm going to push the Alt or Option key if you're on a Mac. And you'll see that the target has changed. Do you see the difference up there?
Yes.
It went from that to that. And then you just give it a left click. And then you can move this down. And I can either make that dot and dot this blue eye if I want to. So I just did that. But it's, if you look over on the layers panel, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a tiny red dot down there.
Right.
And that is telling you that you just cloned that spot down there and it's on the same layer. But guess what? I can change layers and go to my blue dots there. And now that blue dot or that, so that is on, you don't see a red dot down below, you see it above the blue bar. On the
Now,
layer.
can I back you up just a sec?
You may.
So your background layer is the red and white,
Yep,
and then your first layer has the blue on it.
yep.
So that, what'd you do? Put a second layer? You brought that in?
Yeah, I made that before I got here, just so that this is really to demonstrate that you can choose a source on one layer, but you can clone onto a different layer
Oh,
if you wish. And so I've got two on the blue layer now and one on the red layer. Now, to demonstrate, I used the softest brush here. The hardness is turned down, very, very, very soft. And I'm going to change just to 102, but now I'm going to take it and do the hardness all the way up. And now I'm going to go back to this red layer as my source, Alt and click or Option and click. And now I'm going to hit and clone it. Look what it did. It's a very hard circle and it looks very different. You know, the color's very dark. It follows all along. I'm going to put it on the other layer and you can see it's still there. It follows whatever choice I have. And I just did it on the blue layer just for the heck of it, just so I show that I can. Now that's interesting. Wonder why, see how it cut that in half? I'm not sure why. Oh, I know why I did that. Good example. So I had chosen my source here. And then if I wanted to clone it, you can see how it's not, it can't clone over here. It stopped, it turned white. And the reason being is that the source spot where I originally wanted to clone from is now off the page up here. And that may be more than we need to talk about.
amen.
Okay, but bottom line is you can affect a clone on a different layer. And I'm going to go into some more detail about that later. But I just want to really show you the softness and hardness idea. And the size that you choose becomes a bit of an art as we go.
Right.
And so now we'll go into something more practical. I'll show you a photograph and we'll do something with that. So I'm going to get out of this file and I'm going to go to this file. And this is a Statue of Liberty, and that's my daughter and my wife taking a selfie of themselves. And some bozo is bent over in our picture.
Okay.
So the first thing I'm going to do is actually has nothing to do with cloning, but it does a similar effect. I'm going to do a selection box. I just chose this square and did a selection box. And then I'm going to do edit, fill, and it's content aware fill. And I'm just going to say, okay. And it fixed that white area that was in the sky.
Okay, so could you go back over that for just one sec?
Sure. So I'm just going to do Control Z.
Okay.
So what I had done at some point is the Statue of Liberty wasn't perfectly parallel.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you want to, there are guides in Photoshop. When you have the rulers turned on up here, you can grab a guide and I can check to see if that's parallel with the ground. I'll pull that guide down so I can see. And you can also do it on a vertical too, if you wanted to see if that corner was vertical. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I'm going to get rid of these. And I'm using the move tool to move them around and to bring them into the image. So all I'm doing is I'm choosing the rectangular marquee tool over here. And I'm going to draw a selection. And I'm going to do edit, fill. There's also something called content aware fill, but you don't want that. I'm running out of time. How is that possible?
Huh?
I just got a message that says the meeting is going to end in 10 minutes.
Who have you been talking to before us?
Yeah, nobody. I'm not sure what's going on with that. But anyway,
Okay.
if it kicks us out, then I will email you a new meeting for the four of us.
Okay.
Anyway, I said edit, fill, and under the contents, you can do the foreground, the background. You can do different colors, but I want content aware. And I'll say okay. And then it's going to fill in the rest of that. So what content aware does is it looks at the colors nearby and the tones and makes a selection to fill that for you.
Nice.
Okay, now we're going to clone and we're going to get rid of this bozo. So I'm going to make this bigger so we can see. You can also see if there's people up higher on the Statue of Liberty. So here's my guy. And I'm going to get rid of him. I'm going to my clone tool. And I am going to choose those bricks down here at the bottom. They
Yeah.
are a little bit soft. So I'm going to choose a brush with a hardness of about 11, let's just say. And I'm going to use 99 pixels because that was easy. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this little piece of shadow down here first. So I'm going to choose an area of the brick that looks like it will make sense to the image. So that's my source. The target changed, and I'm going to click on that. And then now it's going to bring brick shape over here. And it's gone.
Nice.
Now I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to choose a bottom brick here. And I'm going to come over to this location. And I'm going to paint in my bricks. and that's getting rid of the shadow. Now you can see it actually duplicated part of the shadow because I didn't have enough area. So I'll come back here and pick this. And actually, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to pick this. I'm going to choose that spot. And now I'm going to paint that in. And that got rid of the additional shadow there.
Wow.
I can do the same thing with this shadow here. I'm going to come up and do the sidewalk. I chose right there between his legs. And now I'm going to come down and do that. Now, sometimes I will actually make selections to make absolutely perfect clones, especially if I'm going to enter into a competition. But in this case, this works very well. My lines are straight enough that I don't have to worry too much. So you get the idea. And you can just continue and do that with the entire object. And I'm going to choose, I'll just switch to here. And now I'm going to do that bar and get rid of that.
Wow.
So it's pretty easy to do. It just takes a little practice, and you can do pretty complicated things.
Can you do the lasso or the rectangle selection, outline that bozo, and then kind of put away, fill them out?
You could lasso, or excuse me, you could lasso, or you could select an area if you want to make the edges absolutely perfect. And that's a choice that you can do. It would be too much work to do it with every photo, but you can do it for select photos that are where you feel it's critical. Is that what you were asking? So I'm not going to do the whole thing, but you get the idea. You know,
Yeah.
you're just going to select areas that make sense. Like I'm going to guess where that brick ends and starts, and then I'll just paint it. Okay, now I'm going to switch to something called the self-healing brush. And you'll find that this will be handy for portraits in particular. So the tool for that is over here on the left. It looks like a, I don't know what it looks like. It looks like a briefcase or a woman's purse or something. And you want to choose, I'm going to choose for him, I'm going to get rid of some of the blemishes on his face. So I'm going to choose like 100 pixels. This is a very high resolution image. So maybe a little more, 125, 130, somewhere in there. And the hardness, his face is fairly crisp. So if you had a soft area, you'd want a softer brush. If you have a crisper area, you want a little bit of a hardness to it. So I'm going to choose 17 just to try. And all you do with that is you're not selecting any area. What you're doing is you're just going to click on a blemish and it's going to start to go away. You click around it. And what it's doing is it's sampling the skin nearby and it's eliminating the blemish. And sometimes you need to use the cloning tool if this doesn't work well enough. You could also, do the texture tool in Adobe Raw or Lightroom Raw, and you could use that to create that same feeling. Now you can click in individual spots, or if you have an area that's larger, you can paint that spot. And then it'll do the whole thing at once. I tend to want to do small increments because when you paint a larger area, it doesn't always do a perfect job. Can you see that, or is that too subtle?
No, you can see it. Now, would you take that hair? Oh, the hair on his cheek?
Yeah. So for that, let's try it with this tool. I'm going to try a couple of hairs there. Not too bad.
Right.
The cloning tool might be a little more perfect to use there, but this works too. So I'm just going to remove all the flaws from this guy. And I wish he would have shaved before I took his picture, but he didn't.